In the current media environment, any localized fire in the Middle East will be quickly packaged into a doomsday rehearsal. Red alert. Spread on social media and news scroll bars, suggesting that we are on the brink of a world war. For each conflict, a popular argument. Interpret it as a war against China and Russia. Commenter. Trying to use a grand ideological framework to explain a highly localized geopolitical conflict. This narrative blurs the boundaries between reality and imagination. He will misrepresent miscellaneous regional interests, simplified into a black and white faction confrontation, so that when we deal with real crises, trapped in epistemological disorder, actual intelligence data and official statements, provides another solution. The United States has not released any. The model that expanded the scope of the war to China and Russia. Washington's current military deployment remains highly concentrated in specific areas. These sensational war predictions, out of the logic of reality, become a projection of the analyst's own collective anxiety. Maintain conflict in a local context. It is still the implicit consensus in the current game of great powers. The media's obsession with beheadings, an illusion from a precision surgical operating room. People want to cut out a key node of the hostile system to achieve the political outcome of the medical elderly friendship. Real battlefield environment. Far more than this mechanistic history imagined. More explosive and uncontrollable. It is cultural friction and results of nonlinear dynamic interleaving. Any slight deviation could trigger a devastating chain reaction. History has repeatedly demonstrated the shattering of this illusion. In the jungles of Vietnam, the U.S. military's technology is poor, completely offset by asymmetric consumption stations. In this photo, the advantage of science and technology is in the original, appearing pale and powerless in the face of the initial confrontation. Mountains of Afghanistan also reveals similar truths. Even with air supremacy and advanced equipment, soldiers still have to step in. Dusty village, facing unpredictable ground friction. Iraq's wasteland witnesses the failure of quick decisions. Long front, extending the political and financial burden. Finally led expensive force. Caught in an endless security war. Plan to talk. Technological superiority can only determine the outcome of a specific battle. If policymakers lack awe of reality, even see military operations as controlled experiments, that was the beginning of a systemic rout. To understand the nature of the current situation, we have to go back to the Cold War. At that time, what human beings faced was real, physical threat of destruction, rather than the shadows exaggerated by the media. President Reagan at the time, tough British image. He publicly refers to his opponents as the evil empire. With a firm stance and high military spending, reshaped America's confrontational posture. In the shadow of its tough rhetoric, Reagan maintained extreme sanity and calm inside. The consequences of nuclear war. Maintain almost instinctive combat power. This allows him to use his power. There is always a sense of boundaries. This sobriety breeds strategic restraint. Really powerful. In the ability to destroy opponents, but show a sense of responsibility not to use that power lightly. At the height of the Cold War confrontation, Reagan chose to use diplomatic means to resolve the crisis. Signed the Treaty of Loyalty and Cooperation with the Soviet Union. It was his deliberate defensive turn, rather than a betrayal of a tough stance. This diplomatic breakthrough shows strategic maturity. Reagan knows real security, rooted in mutual respect for boundaries of power, rather than being pushed down by Qing Shui. A chain reaction of dominoes. The global situation today continues this logic of restraint. Current regional conflicts cannot be a single definition of the Iranian model. China and Russia as major powers deeply involved in global governance. Its behavior pattern is deeply tied to interests, implications for strategic deterrence. In a balanced context, traditional linear scaling is no longer used. Watch these spheres move towards each other. Over-the-shoulder interaction focuses on signal boats. Bottom field. When the action triggers a change in connection color, this is actually conveying red to the opponent. Position of the line. rather than the intent to declare war. This dynamic balance established boundaries of mutual respect, so-called strategic restraint, reflected in the careful definition of core interests. This ensures that even if there are differences between the two sides, nor will it cross the tipping point of a full-scale conflict between India and France. What we are currently witnessing, it is a strategic tug-of-war and boundary test at the geographic level. Before the real World War, should have structural upgrade signals. Not in the current situation. Real security comes from rational games, mutual compromise with interests. Treat the current friction as a doomsday order. Not only mislead the public, it also squeezes the space for rational decision-making. War, often romanticized in the mouths of the media and adventurers. But in reality, he is the most costly collective act. This is a huge bet for civilization. We are betting on the lives of countless people. To test the stability ceiling of a fragile system, a responsible international order must be built on awe of history. This awe derives from our deep understanding of human common vulnerability. Mature observers should reject emotional media narratives. In the hustle and bustle of public opinion, soberly recognize the boundaries between power and risk. Only maintain a clear understanding of power,